Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome. On behalf of Dr. Lily Erwalajczyk, Vice President International at the National Science and Technology Development Agency, as well as my colleagues at the International Cooperation Division, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this information session on French funding and fellowship opportunities for researchers in Thailand. My name is Simon Grimley. I work with the International Cooperation Division at NSTDA, and I'll be moderating the session this afternoon. We are very fortunate today to have with us three presenters. They are Dr. Guillaume, who is Attaché for Scientific and Higher Education Cooperation at the French Embassy in Thailand. We also have Dr. Olivier Evrard, who's representative of IRD in Thailand. And then we have Dr. Michel de Garine-Wichatitsky, CIRAD representative here in Thailand. Before we get started with the presentations, just a couple of points on housekeeping. Please note that all presentations this afternoon will be shared with you after the event. You can ask questions at any time during the event, and you can type those in the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll certainly do our best to answer those over the course of this information session. So I think it's time to get started. I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Guillaume, who will lead with the first presentation this afternoon. Guillaume, the floor is yours.
Yep. Thank you, Simon. Oops. Thank you. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can see you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Simon. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm very pleased actually to be here and to have this opportunity to present some possibilities and for next maybe years to collaborate and strengthen collaboration between Thailand and France, and in particular with researchers from NSTDA and the counterpart in France. I'd just like to maybe have a very small notification. Maybe if Olivier can be contacted to join the meeting, I think he's trying to enter the room as well. Olivier from IRD. So before maybe I would like to start, and we have some time to present you these different possibilities. Just like to know if you can share the screen or if you can share the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, so I'm Guillaume. I work at the French Embassy. As it was mentioned by Simon, we have Olivier and Michel from both from different research organizations based and located in Thailand. Actually, they are representative, but also researchers for those organizations. So I try to be brief on the French Embassy side, and they will also complete for the IRD and CIRAD side. So to start, I'd like to mention that, of course, for France, next slide, maybe, please. Yes, thank you. I'd like to start with this slide, actually, not to give you too many information, but maybe to give you some general priorities for France in terms of research and development as a whole, and for international scale partnerships, actually. As you can see from here, that it's quite a priority for France, and I would like to illustrate that with these few actually figures. Number one is the number of papers, like more than 60, almost 60% of the French scientific papers are international collaboration, co-publication, sorry. French also is very much involved into postgraduate studies. And if you consider that there's more than 42% and even more of doctoral candidates, they are not from France. So there's multiple forms of collaboration, starting from early age, actually training for young researchers, namely the PhD students. Of course, PhD can be done in French, but also in English right now in most of the the areas of and the topics are covered, and it's possible for all of them. And also in terms of a structure, the structure of the research in France is actually complex, I would say, but diverse as well. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you have some representative from research and very important research organization, namely CIRAD and ERD today. There's also the French National Research Center that you probably know, the CNRS, but also others in agriculture and environment, also in HAE or in CERN, in health, or Pasteur Institute that you are familiar with, I know. So they all have actually, and they all share actually the vision of international cooperation in the sense that they have facilities around the world. And so they have permanent actually researchers around the world. Next slide, please. So as far as we are concerned at the embassy, I would like to maybe go more straight to the point that what is the role of the embassy in this landscape and in facilitating actually some research and partnerships between bilateral partnerships, but also regional partnerships between Thailand and France. Next slide, please. So we have actually some different programs that are supported, all supported by the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and but also from the Thai side, from the MESI, but and also universities, that has been actually clearly defined for different publics, different type of researcher, starting from master and PhD. On the left-hand side of this slide, you have the Franco-Thai scholarship program, and there's also the junior fellowship program in the previous slide, please. In the middle and on the right side, you have the Franco-Thai joint research program, a pure bilateral program. So as you can see, this is a kind of continuum actually, and it is structured into 3 different programs for different types of research and maturity of research. But I would say the common point between these 3 programs is really to focus at the first year of research, like for young researchers, including, of course, students, but also young permanent researchers from research organizations and universities. And of course, NSTDA is eligible in most of these programs, NSTDA researchers, I mean. Next slide, please. So as you can see, those 3 programs, they are coexisting, and we have developed like an annual agenda, a joint agenda actually, with also considering the different agenda from Thailand and from France. And you can see here in black, that's let's say the different timeline for the junior research fellowship program. It's a kind of individual fellowship, and also the Franco-Thai in red color, and in green color the PhD SIAM. So basically, for these 3 programs, we support the mobility of researchers, but also providing some help for social welfare and for living allowance in France when it comes to support from Thailand to France. And sometimes it's more complex because it's a joint, pure joint scheme where you have some support from the people who come to Thailand, the people from Thailand when they go to France. Anyway, just to say that it's an annual actually set of schemes. And if you look at the green side, for example, we have just launched the PhD SIAM, which is open for submission before the end of July. And as far as I know, that for an STDA researcher, you can also be a co-PI in this kind of scheme. But we will launch at the end of August the Junior Research Fellowship Program, where an STDA researcher, they are fully eligible for that. And it's for mobility for next year. And there's also, as I mentioned before, for master and PhD students, the last program in red here on this slide to be launched in October. Next slide, please. In terms of topics, if I take this last and the later program, the scholarship program, you can see here that in different colors, you have the different types of field of studies. We made a kind of statistics on this program, and you can see clearly that based on eligible actually applications, that more than 50% of all the fields are covered and overlap with the fields of NSTDA. namely, of course, biology, health science, basic science, engineering, agronomy, agriculture, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So in this one, I would like to just to mention also the second one, the Junior Research Fellowship Program. So that's an opportunity, let's say, to stay for up to 6 months in a French laboratory. So that's really a one-way mobility, one way, but one mobility and the criteria is for young researchers, like 5 years maximum after their PhD. And in terms of success rate is more like 35% to 40% of success. So as I said, it will be launched at the end of August. So really invite and suggest you to apply. Next slide, please. Why actually the question here is why do we maintain this program as a single program? Is probably because it's really addressed to people who when they start their career, and they need to demonstrate that they can make a kind of significant work, advance in research, and more visibility for international partnership. And so it can be seen as an opportunity for developing more visibility, but more research based on a very typical or very specific aspect of their research to be developed with a French partner in that case. If you look on the right side, then you can see that also based on the stats we did for the research domains covered, at least it's open, it's a bottom-up actually program, but it's based on the eligible and laureates actually that were supported by this program. You can see that, of course, it covers very much the topics like biology, medicine, health, but also engineering and so on. So we are more like almost 70% of the overlap with NSTDA topics. Next slide, please. And the last but not least, I would like to mention is a staff mobility exchange. So the first two, as you understand, that it can be from Thailand to France, but eventually sometimes it can be a sandwich program for a PhD. And for this one, it's mobility. So there's kind of reciprocity in mobilities from French researcher to come to Thailand and the other way around. And so it has been also successful. And I'd like to mention here, next slide, please, that this program, which is actually open for application, just like to give an example for this year, that it's also bottom-up, as I said. Of course, the complementarity is a very important aspect of this program because it's a joint evaluation that is a guarantee of success for being selected. But here it covered also geographically all Thailand. And this is just the case for this year. You can have the list here of the different programs that are covered, like it's 32 actually ongoing project this year. Next slide, please. And so I'd like to focus on three maybe more information. Number one is that to mention that we have actually evaluated, not we, but we have sent all these statistics and questionnaires and through the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Innovation in France to the PI to see what could be, it's a kind of evaluation we did last year. And these different charts that you have on this slide is just showing where the PhD SIAM is in comparison with other bilateral programs for France. So it has been a French evaluation to evaluate PhD SIAM with their counterpart program at the international level, because it has been deployed in 70 different countries. You can see that the red dots here, PhD SIAM, there's still some place for improvement, but it also reflects very much the priority of France in supporting young researchers. So the age of the PI or the age or the implication of young researcher is very much something that needs to be really taken into account once you apply to this kind of program. Next slide, please. And in terms of scientific output, which actually echoes what I said with the second program, the Junior Fellowship Program, I think there's still also some space for improvement in the future for the PhD SIAM, but for bilateral program with France. But it's definitely helped, based on this evaluation, to trigger something with seed money and then after that transform into a more visibility program, bilateral program. So with this, I'd like to finish with the next slide, please, with some recommendation based on this evaluation. And that's more or less what I said. Maybe there's some other items like more women researchers strongly encouraged to apply, but also it's to consider the last bullet point, consider a Science+ program. So it means there's some existing program, but we are ready to work on a new program and to focus on what can be also complementary to what is existing today. Next slide, please. And the last, my last slide actually, before going to Olivier's session, part of the presentation, is to say that there's just, I presented to you 3 different schemes that are strongly supported by the embassy, and we are supported, highly supported from France for that. But there's also other forms, other contribution through the embassy, but that are not necessarily visible, namely the RGG program or FR program. It's a kind of selection for PhD, but from France, and there's more competition in the way that it's not only bilateral program and bilateral competition, but it's an international competition to be laureate, and other types of bilateral and bi-regional program. I'd like to finish with actually, again, with the presence of some French researcher permanently based here in Thailand from different organizations. I mentioned CNRS. There's Institut Pasteur, for example, here in Cambodia or in Vietnam. There's IRASEC for social sciences, based in Bangkok. There's also CIRAD and IRD. And so today I'd like to pass the floor actually to Olivier from IRD to continue the presentation. Olivier.
Hello, Guillaume. Hello to all. Thank you for having this session with us and to let us the opportunity to present our funding scheme. So I am the representative from the French Research Institute for Sustainable Development in Thailand. Please, Guillaume, can you go on? Yes. So our institution is a public institute in France under 2 line ministries, Ministry of Higher Education and Research on one hand, Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the other hand. We have been created 75 years ago, roughly, and we are conducting research in tropical countries all around the world with the objective of promoting sustainable development and the training of researchers and experts in those countries. So our main focus is our SDGs, the global challenges for sustainable development. We focus on fair scientific partnership, and we focus also on discoveries which can inform public policies. Next slide, please, Guillaume. Thank you. So roughly to give you an idea, you will have the key figures on these slides, but just to explain you, we are covering all the scientific fields, but we have 5 scientific departments. The first one is working on earth science and mitigation of risks. The second one is focusing on biodiversity in all its dimensions. We have a third department focusing on oceans, a fourth one devoted to health science. And finally, the 5th department is covering all the social sciences and humanities. Next slide, please. So as you can see in this map, we are covering all the tropical areas in the world. Like 50%, more or less roughly 50% of our researchers are working in Africa currently, with 25% and 25% working respectively in South America and Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, the 3 main countries where we have researchers are Vietnam, Thailand, and India. I mean South Asia, not only Southeast Asia. Next slide, please. So the point I would like to insist on today is to explain you the main funding schemes that we are implementing in all those those countries. We have basically 5 funding schemes available for our scientific partners. The first one is called Young Associated Teams with IRD. It's a funding scheme which is devoted to young collaboration, which doesn't mean young researchers, but young collaboration. And it's, to give you an idea, it's roughly about 15,000 euro per year for 3 years. The second funding scheme, which is often considered as a logical further step after a young associated teams, is International Joint Laboratory. We are talking here about more substantial funding, around 40 to 50,000 euro for 5 years, which can be renewed once. So it means that this funding can go up to 10 years in some cases. And this funding scheme should be considered a little bit like a flagship for our institution. Those are the main collaboration projects for our institution. The three other funding schemes are more classical in a sense. We have international research networks. So the funding is roughly the same as for the young associated teams. But the difference is that instead of having only 2 countries, so meaning researchers from France and then researcher from a partner country, we have here at least 2 partners countries. So meaning that in total, we have a network of 3 countries collaborating together. So in the case of Thailand, for instance, it could be Thailand plus researchers from Vietnam or even Africa or South America, and then researchers from IRD. The 2 others are PhD grants and postdoc grants. And finally, we have also some funding for strengthening research capacities, organizing a workshop, international workshop for partners all around the world. For instance, we are organizing quite often a workshop about writing a scientific article or writing a proposal for a project. Those are trainings that gather around 15 to 20 partner researchers from various areas from the world. So a very important point to understand is that all those funding schemes need to be applied to and implemented through IRD researchers or research units based in France. As a representative for IRD, I can make the go-between, but the application must be submitted in relation with IRD researchers that will directly write the proposal with the partner. It's not going through the representative office in Thailand. And you have, for the deadlines and for the details, you have everything really well explained on the website, IRD website. Next slide, please. So this is a quick overview of the current research project that we have here in Thailand. So big share of those research programs are focusing on health, with a big research unit in Chiang Mai, PHPT, but also research conducted with Maidol University, for instance, in Bangkok about Zika. We will have some researchers today who will, in the second part of our meeting, we will present their research. And we have also the second main topic that we are investigating in Thailand is biodiversity. And we will have also Emmanuel Paradis presenting his own work that he is currently conducting with Atian Sisadet, for instance. Next slide, please. So a quick overview of our main partners in Thailand. We have Thai universities such as Chulalongkorn, Kaset Sat, Maidol, Chiang Mai, Prince of Songkhla, Naresuan, Borapa, etc. We have MOU, existing MOU with other Thai government agencies such as Land Development Department, National Park, and currently also an existing MOU with, of course, NSTDA and with TICA. You have the key figures for the last 5 years, so you can grasp more or less the human resources we're able to deploy in your country. Next slide, please. And that's the last one. So thank you, and I'm of course open to remain available for any question you may have in the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olivier. If I may, I just maybe a short transition to Michel and to CIRAD. Michel, if you're here.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present CIRAD and our activities and the opportunities for the collaboration. So next slide. Just a quick overview of CIRAD globally. So CIRAD is the largest research organization working overseas on all the questions related with sustainable agriculture. So that represents globally more than 150 partner organizations, and we are present and collaborating in more than 100 countries throughout the world. One thing that is quite important for the way we are structured, so partnership and research in partnership is really something very important in the way we operate and we do research. And we have actually structured our presence in a lot of countries around what we call DPs, which is a priority networks, which are located, as you can see now on that map. We've got 21 of these networks that are located especially in Africa, but also in Southern America and in Southeast Asia. We've got 4 of these dispositifs en partenariat, and I will talk a bit more about that because I think that's really an avenue for scaling up the collaboration between NSTDA researchers and CIRAD researchers. So altogether, more than 400 researchers are assigned overseas, so not in France and in the French overseas regions, and a lot of papers, of course. What do researchers do? They try to publish papers. So can we have the next slide? In terms of internal existing schemes for facilitating mobility or that could be accessible to NSTDA or other Thai researchers. So currently CIRAD has got several what we call actions incitatives, which are some schemes that would allow Thai, but not only Thai, all researchers from all around the world to be selected and supported for collaboration in France and specifically with CIRAD. So we've got something that is quite similar to what was presented by Olivier in terms of support, direct support to some PhD candidates to do from the 1,000 countries that can, to allow them to do their PhD with the CIRAD teams. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is also to have a targeted strengthening of competencies or acquiring new skills for researchers and partners from the South. So that's another scheme that could be available. One thing I must stress out is that this is not specifically targeted to Southeast Asia or even to Thailand. So that's quite competitive. And Thai applicants would have to go through partnerships with the CIRAD researchers and again would be in competition around, for different applications around the world. Another point that is I would like to mention is the importance of the dispositif en partenariat because they receive direct support from France. That's an annual grant that supports the activities, either workshop or training or even short specific missions. And this funding is not actually competitive, but it's directly targeted to make sure that there is a proper functioning of the dispositif en partenariat. Next slide, please. So CIRAD in Southeast Asia, we're talking about 32 senior researchers that are permanently based in Asia in 2021. So that includes 14 researchers in Vietnam, 6 in Cambodia, we are 4 in Thailand, 3 in Laos, 3 in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, 1. And in Southeast Asia, continental Southeast Asia, we've got 4 of the dispositifs en partenariat that I mentioned before. And these represent the main topics that where we are working. CIRAD is concentrating the activities around EVA research platform in partnership, looking at rubber from production all the way to transformation. And the second sector of activities, thematics, is about emerging diseases and One Health approaches. Next slide. So to get more in details, CIRAD in Thailand, we're talking about a very long-term presence, I mean, more than 20 years of collaboration, and the number of researchers permanently based in Thailand has fluctuated from 4, this is a low, probably linked with the COVID situation, but it went up to 15 researchers based in Thailand at the time. We've got very diverse partnerships. So one of our major university partners is Kasetsart University, but we're also collaborating with several other Thai universities. We're collaborating obviously with the NSTDA, with some government agencies like TICA or the Department of Livestock departments. But also, and I would like to emphasize this, we're collaborating a lot with the private sector and with international organizations that are based in Thailand, especially in Bangkok. And that's a big share of our activities, because a lot of the activities of the researchers, CIRAD researchers based in Thailand, is actually regional partnerships. That's the last point I wanted to mention, is that through these dispositifs en partenariat, which are based in Thailand, it's a network that also associates researchers from Laos, from Vietnam, from all around the region. And that's a lot of the missions that are actually coming from to Thailand. So we're talking about more than 500 days of missions for CIRAD researchers in Thailand per year. But a lot of these missions also involve other countries, neighboring countries. And that's really a great opportunity for scaling up the collaboration between CIRAD researchers, Thai researchers, and researchers in the region. And I would like to stop here and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Michel. Thank you, Olivier. So for very nice information to share at the regional scale, especially. And I'd like to also come back to one maybe information page if you need some contact, of course, and some more if you have more questions and information that we share on our platform. We also have at the Embassy Campus France, it's a national agency working for the promotion of higher education and research. So of course we strongly work together. Next slide, please. They also develop some kind of, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. They also develop some platform, for example, online platform where you can locate and use actually this type of platform to try to identify some laboratories using keywords and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I'd like to finish with next slide, please. With after actually collaboration has started on the long run, and we have an illustration today, and I'd like to thank them actually. There's also some alumni from this program, and we also try to work more and more on that aspect of the people who used to work or to collaborate with France as alumni, develop a platform for France alumni. And with this, I'd like to finish, and I hope that we are really open to any kind of questions afterwards. Again, thank you very much, and thank you all for listening to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillaume. Thank you, Olivier. Thank you, Michel. Just before, well, speaking of alumni, we we're fortunate to have two alumni of French funding programs, scholarship programs with us today. So they will tell you about their experience. But just before we move to that, a couple of questions have come in. Very quickly, Guillaume, is there an age limit for the PhD CM applicant?
So my answer would say, as a PI, I would say no. But as if you consider like the evaluation that I share, it's very much important actually to include young researchers. I know it can be challenging, but that's something, and that's a strong criteria. But of course, this depends on the average. The age, when you refer to the age, there's no limitation actually for that. Okay. But for the PhD, for the young researcher, it's based on the number of years after PhD, 5 years maximum after PhD for young fellowship.
One more quick question. Do you need to speak French to participate in these programs? Is it a mandatory requirement?
It's not a requirement if you speak. It's not a disadvantage if you speak, but of course it's not a criteria. As we know that English language is important, but it can be crucial sometimes for some topics, of course. But it's not a criteria for us.
Okay, let's move to the next part of our program. We have two alumni of French research scholarship programs with us today. And so we'd like them to tell you about their experience, how they got involved or connected with France, how they benefited and so on, and what advice they might have for young researchers interested in cooperating with France. The first presenter is Dr. Noppol Kobmoo, who is a colleague here at NSTDA. He has really more than 20 years, if I calculated correctly, more than 20 years of experience cooperating with France. He completed his PhD in France. He also was awarded the very prestigious Marie-Skłodowska Curie Action, the MSCA postdoctoral fellowship, which saw him spend a 2-year postdoc in France, in Paris. So I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Noppol and let him describe to you how he connected with France and what his experience was like. Dr. Noppol?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, good afternoon, sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, okay, so I can share my screen. Yeah, so, well, what I'm presenting to you today is actually not properly a French scheme of collaboration. Is European, so it's from the Horizon 2020 Marie Curie Fellowship. And actually, I came across this fellowship is because actually, before I did all my university study in France, from the bachelor's degree to the PhD. And well, why in France the Marie Curie Fellowship was already very well known.
Dr. Noppol, sorry to interrupt. Could you just please make your presentation full screen?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. So actually, in France, the Marie Curie Fellowship is already very well known, and many PhD students like really try to got this fellowship as a postdoctoral program after the PhD. But after my PhD in 2010, I came back to Thailand, and I started working at the National Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, or BIOTEC, part of NASDA. And actually, I started working in a research team, working mostly on the taxonomy and systematics of fungi. And so actually, from my PhD, I had backgrounds in molecular phylogeny and population genetics. So I came to work with this group trying to like bring some new insights from the population genetics, etc. And at that time, like the science of genomics was getting developed really, really fast. And I felt for myself that I need to like get familiarized and trained in the genomics, but not just only the population genetics. So I started by like contacting Dr. Tatiana Giraud, who worked at University Paris at Orsay in suburban of Paris. Well, at that time, after I worked in biotech just a few years, I was able to like make some publications, and one of my very first publication was in molecular ecology, and Dr. Tatiana was just like the subject editor. So she saw my work, she found that it is interesting. So I like started to like have conversation with her about like potential collaboration, etc., etc. And one thing to another, we felt that maybe like the Marie Curie Fellowship could be a good opportunity. Actually, she had a very strong background in genomics of fungi and evolution, while on my side, it was more from the taxonomy and tropical ecology. So we felt that we could really have like complementary profiles, and that could be a kind of strength also for the Marie Curie Fellowship. So like we started developing the proposal. It did not work the first time. It did work the second time. So I was allowed to travel to France again and spend 2 years there, like working on population genomics and comparative genomics full time. While before I did not particularly have strong backgrounds on those fields. But the Marie Curie Fellowship allowed me to have many trainings, participate to many workshops, and kind of like, you know, build another asset to my expertise, which just from like evolutionary biologists who had knowledge and background in population genetics and molecular phylogenies into someone who can master the bioinformatics and data science tools. So, so my advice for those who are interested in like the Marie Curie Fellowship is that you need to find a good partner that can really match you. And for that, the permanent networking is really necessary, like conference, workshop, or anything that will allow you to meet new people. Don't hesitate to participate. Try to like take advantage of your personal contacts as most as possible. Try to make yourself visible. Like you do personal website, use Google Scholar or ResearchGate to make yourself known to the international scientific communities. And then we'll try to build a decent or even strong CV. Try to develop skills on the grant writing, like participate to any workshop that could really help you improve your skill in the grant writing. And then choose and contact the right host. So the host should be complementary to you. There should be mutual benefits. Host with good track record, with experience, with the financing from European Commission is a plus. And then if you can find a host that really communicate well and give you quick feedback, which shows sign of enthusiasm, that is also a very good sign. So, well, just don't be afraid. Try to think about something, try to find the right host, and then develop your proposal. Well, I mean, I think that would be all for me.
Thank you, Dr. Noppol. That was very good. And thank you for pointing or bringing our attention to the MSCA, the postdoctoral fellowships. Your presentation is very timely because the MSCA, what used to be called the individual fellowships, are now just called the postdoctoral fellowships. That call is open now. Will close in October. Two things to keep in mind about that call. One is it's bottom up, so they will fund The European Commission funds all areas of research. Thailand is eligible. Thai researchers can get funded. A second key point is that you choose, where you wish to do this fellowship. So those of you that are interested in cooperating with France, who already have maybe French partners or would like to form a sort of research cooperation with France, you're free to do that. So this, though it's not a French program, it's a European program, but it can take you to France. And the postdoctoral fellowship is a 1 to 2 year fellowship, fully funded. So I would encourage you to consider that. If you have any questions about the fellowship, please contact us at NSTDA at the Research Support Office, and we can provide you some information on that. And in the coming days, we'll be running some events, some information events on the Marie Curie. Thanks, Dr. Noppol. Good to see you again. And next, we would like to invite Dr. Sirinan Kulchat to join us from Khon. She actually first received a research grant from Nazareth, a scholarship from NSTDA at the age of 16 from the Junior Science Talent Project. And then she came to Bangkok and studied chemistry at Chulalongkorn. Then she went on to do her PhD in France. And there she was under the supervision of Professor Jean-Marie Len, who's the Nobel laureate in chemistry in 1987. And she is now back at Khon University in the Faculty of Science and is a lecturer in chemistry. So, Dr. Sirinan, can we invite you to present, please?
Okay, so may I share my screen?
Very good. Good to see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation for me to give a talk today in this conference. So my name is Assistant Professor Dr. Sirinan Kulchat. At the moment, I'm working at the Department of Chemistry, Faculty of Science, Khon University. Okay. I have a very long experience in France. I mean, when I studied for my bachelor degree and my master degree, I studied in the chemistry major in Chulalongkorn University. And then after I finished my master degree, I contact Professor Jean-Marie Len to apply for the PhD program. And I got the funding from this grant from Kulchat Scholarship with the support of the Khon University also to get the funding to stay in France for my PhD from 2011 to 2015. So my PhD program is under this topic. I study with him about the constitutional dynamic chemistry. So I get a lot of knowledge and I get a lot of connection. So I have a lot of collaborators from this program. And then after I finished my PhD program, I moved back to Thailand. So I got the position as the lecturer at the Department of Chemistry. And then after about 2 or 3 years, I applied to this grant, the Junior Research Fellowship Program, and I also got this grant again. And I went back there to work with the Professor Jean-Marie Len again as his postdoctoral, and I stayed there for like 6 months to work in a different topic. At that time, I worked on the dynamic chemistry with the nanochemistry. So I work with the quantum dot dynamic covalent chemistry. It is quite very interesting topic. And by the meantime, I also applied to this grant, to the grant of the Franco-Thai mobility program called Hubert Korean Siam, this one, and to collaborate between Khon University and University of Strasbourg. And with this grant, one of my PhD students also go to work with Professor Jean-Marie Len. It is very good opportunity for young Thai PhD students to join and to work with his group. And he is very happy. And now my PhD student, Mr. Chanon Talot Thaisung, he already graduated from he already got his doctoral degree, and he just graduated in March this year, actually. So I joined all of the 3 programs, and I got a very good chance and excellent chance to join all of them. So at the moment, actually my role in the university is I am a lecturer in chemistry and also researcher in the field of smart materials for the application of sensors and antibacterial agents. This one is the student. They are the student in my research group at Khon University, Department of Chemistry. So this is our group meeting activities. We have the group meeting activities like one time per month. So it is a very good chance for the young scientists, for them to learn about the chemistry as well. And now my research group interest is about the constitutional dynamic chemistry and supramolecular chemistry. Actually, my main research is on the nanotechnology. I'm also interested in the wound dressing and some kind of material chemistry and medicinal chemistry. And now I'm also working on the hydrogel to make it as the prototype for the industrial scale in the futures. Okay, I think this is all for my part. Thank you very much.
Which is, why did you choose France for your PhD? Is that because you already knew or had already had sort of contact with partners there, in particular with Professor Jean-Marie Len?
Why did I choose to study in France? Because at that time I just graduated from the master, and from a long time ago I really want to go to study abroad, like any country in the world. And after I graduated for 1 month, the grant called Thai scholarship. Actually, this is the first years. I applied in 2011, and then I just tried to apply to this grant. But before we apply to this grant, we have to get the supervisor first. And one of my professor in Chulalongkorn University, he has the experience to work with John McLean, and he contacted me. And fortunately, Professor Len said he can accept 1 PhD student at that time, and then I just applied to this grant. So I think it also good opportunity to join his group, because he is a very great scientist, and now he's 82 years old and he's still active, working every day. It's incredible, because he go to work like from 9 and finish work around 7. He's still working. And last 2 weeks we have the group meeting from the many people around the world from his group. So he gave the presentation like for 1 hour. That's incredible things. Yes, got very good experience. Sorry, I cannot hear. Sorry.
I said Guillaume from the French embassy told me that all French people work that hard in France.
That's very impressive.
And have you? I mean, you're maintaining your connections with France now?
Yes, I
through the help of the PhD Siam program, right?
Now, yes, I still have the connection with Professor Len, and also with some of my friends from my PhD. I still contact with her, and one of my collaborators from France, he moved to Australia. Now we still have to work together. Yeah.
Very good. What if you had just one piece of advice to give a young researcher who might be interested in pursuing, PhD, postdoc in France? What would that be? Single piece of advice. What would you say to them?
I think to stay in France is great opportunity, and actually, to be honest, my French, I can speak French a little bit. Don't be scared about the language, because we can stay there. A lot of people can speak English, and I joined the international program. Yes, and because a lot of people in my institute, they speak English, and for the student who want to go there, don't be scared about the language. So we just go there and we learn some new things. Just open your mind. This is for young scientists. Just go there to learn new things, and especially the culture in Europe is great. I love it. The culture about food, about the wine, and many things. Yes, and also the scenery. I love to go out on the holiday to spend the time in several places too. Yes, for traveling. It's a great experience. If you have a chance, just go. Don't be scared. Yes.
That's great advice. Dr. Noppol, are you there? Could I ask the same question of you? What single piece of advice would you give to a young researcher who might be interested in?
Well, I think most of the things are already presented in the presentation, but I think, yeah, just like Dr. Sirinan, just don't be scared. I mean, there are so many things out there that we can learn, like scientifically and culturally, and yeah, it's a great opportunity. And try to be open-minded and try to see which connections you have, which people you know, and then yeah, there might be like opportunities that come to you.
Well, thanks, Dr. Noppol. I think one thing that struck me about both your presentation, Dr. Noppol, and also that of Dr. Sirinan, how I think one initial opportunity, one initial connection with France, then can roll on into many other opportunities. Yes. So that, you know, you get the first fellowship, the first PhD scholarship, whatever it might be, then it opens up doors for many more programs with France. So it's not a one-off experience. I think we're getting close to the end of our session. I'd like to talk, quite a bit longer, but maybe there are some comments from either Guillaume or Olivier or Michel, some comments on what's being presented before we bring the session to a close. Guillaume?
Not specifically. Can you hear me? I don't know.
Can hear you, Guillaume.
No, I think no, not specifically. I'd like to say that it's funny to see that there's different types of illustration here through the, I would say, bilateral programs, but also through the European programs. And I think there's still some space to combine the possibilities between bilateral opportunities between the French embassy and research organization. I think there's still a space for that. So it's more like we are always actually open to discuss, and the sooner is the better once you have good candidates. I think that's a message here. The sooner the better. As Olivier mentioned, that there's a process, there's some timeline, there's some agenda. But if you have the good candidates at the very early stage, for you or for who you supervised, then we'll be happy to discuss. And I'm sure there's plenty of space for supporting this mobility.
Any comments?
Yeah, just to say it's great to have some testimony and to have some success stories. And I'm sure that Olivier would share my comment that we have plenty of success stories like that we would be happy to share with Thai colleagues that have gone to France and very successful partnerships. So I think the main message by Dr. Sirinan is really don't be afraid, go for it. And then, well, I'm sure that there are a lot of opportunities that will open things that you don't even think about when you apply, actually. So great, let's go for it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Michel. And I would especially say that the point that the language is not a barrier is especially true is in nature science or hard sciences, because most of the colleagues in France speak quite well English enough to communicate and do work together. So French language is not a barrier. And even in social science and humanities, where I would say that the language is maybe a little bit more important. We now have universities delivering diploma in English language. So there shouldn't be any barrier, cultural or linguistic barrier for that. And I would just conclude that even if it seems to be a bit of a long process, the Thai partners shouldn't be afraid to come and pass by our office or send us email, and we will be more than happy to try to give them contacts with researchers in France that can help them achieve their project. So, and it's really good to have the opportunity to present our collaborations today at NSTDA. So thanks for that.
One point I'd just like to make in wrapping up, you know, that where I think researchers in Thailand have a real advantage when it comes to France is that Guillaume is here in Bangkok, Olivier is here in Bangkok, Michel's here in Bangkok, and there's also a strong network of French researchers that are already working in Thailand. So in terms of getting, you know, finding additional information, finding partners, etc., it's not difficult. I mean, these are people that are here in Thailand that are willing and keen to help. So I would encourage any of you that joined us today, if you are interested in cooperation with France, please do follow up directly with Guillaume, with Olivier, and with Michel. They're here, and obviously you've heard from their presentations that they're very keen to increase the cooperation with Thailand. On that note, I think we have to wrap things up. Just before I do, I'd like to thank Dr. Guillaume Da, Dr. Olivier Evrard, Dr. Michel de Garine-Wichatitsky for their excellent overview presentations. And thank you to Dr. Noppol and Dr. Sirinan for their testimonials and their encouraging words and the great kind of advertisement they gave to France. So thank you both for your time as well. We will be sharing the presentations today, and if you have any questions, you have our contact details. So please do follow up with either us at NASDA or with our colleagues at the Embassy, IRD, CIRAD. So on that, thank you all very much. Very interesting session. I enjoyed it, and I'm very grateful for your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.